Look, we all know the only good bot is a dead bot, but some of you folks aren't exactly expeditious in your removal of them. I know we don't really do meta builds here because they're kinda lame and very quick to lose relevancy, but this isn't about metas so much as it is the criteria a gun is going to need to kill a clanker in the most efficient way possible. I have thought about a myriad of possibilities, but the most impactful ways to help you will likely be teaching you about how armor penetration actually works, critical weak spots, and how your targets move. I'm not gonna give you that nerd talk breaking down stats for everything because quite frankly, I think games lose their fun when you try to turn it into math. There's a whole number system ranging from 1 through 10 dictating your ability to pierce armor, but it's not worth going through because of how weirdly it applies once you get past hulks. Also, it's not actually represented in the game, so at best, it's an abstract concept to get a hold on. Instead, you can focus on the term medium armor, light vehicle armor, and vehicle armor. The reason we're going to use these instead is because they are actually listed in our armories and are much more interpretable through my incredibly lacking knowledge of algebra. Instead of giving you a bunch of numbers, the way this is going to work is I will work from the smallest enemies up to the biggest, informing you how their armor works, whether it be what penetrates it or where the weak points are, and some fancy ways in which you can avoid getting killed by them immediately. We begin with the standard grunt. Now, for those of you not used to the terminology, this is going to be a word that's widely applicable across every unit that is roughly the same size as you. Grunts come in variants, such as your standard raider with a machine gun, your rocket raider equipped with what is effectively an EAT launcher, a stabby guy with knife hands, marauders that are basically heavier machine gunners, and commissars who have a knife hand paired with a pistol and maintain a higher likelihood of initiating bot drops. There is a final one, but we'll talk about that in a minute because they're a little special. The mentioning of these basic units is pretty much in the video for the sake of completion, because you can kill them with literally anything, ranging from a rocket launcher to your bare hands. It's very easy to dispatch them with your secondary weapon in efforts to save ammo for your primary, but lately I've been using shockwave weapons like the crossbow to take out 6 to 10 at a time. The only real risk they will ever pose to you would be their ability to call in bot drops, so if you haven't seen a bot drop recently, I know it sounds weird because you can prioritize bigger things, but you'll actually want to kill these ones first in the engagement. As for the special one I mentioned before, it's basically a commissar with a jetpack, and it's really easy to explode that jetpack and remove yourself from the gene pool because they get right next to you when your bullets pierce their body. The few ways to get around that would be clipping them out of the air when they jump, shooting them while diving away, shooting them in the face, or putting up your dukes and beating them like a rented mule. That's all your basic enemy units covered, so let's move up the list. We are moving up to Striders, and despite looking daunting with their heavily armored faceplate, these things are right next to Grunts in how easy they are to kill. Although technically you could use a projectile that breaks light vehicle armor to punch through the guard, you can use splash damage much easier. If it has a small area of effect like the Scorcher, simply shoot them at the front and the impact will kill the rider. If there's something bigger like a grenade, autocannon, or the eruptor, you're perfectly fine shooting the ground at their feet. It will still blow them off the Strider, but if you're so inclined, you can also just shoot the driver once again. Further escalating things will bring us to the chainsaw-wielding berserkers. Berserkers aren't the worst thing in the world so long as you either don't stay still or, better yet, you have the ideal weaponry. The easy thing about berserkers is they pose absolutely zero threat from range. The way they swing often leads to missing their target if you run past them, and they are much slower than you. The hard part is they travel in groups of 3 or more, and they're durable as all hell. The weak points are going to reside on the head and, questionably, the glowing red abdomen. You're also capable of tearing off the chainsaws should you hit the shoulder joints, but there's not much of a point. You should still aim for the face. We want them dead, not crippled. Their head movement is erratic and not easy for most people with marksman weapons to hit. The best ways to handle them seems to be a fire hose of medium armor penetrating bullets, guns with heavy stagger or explosives, but put an asterisk next to explosives. Standard practice is going to be running away in order to line them up single file, aim at shoulder level, and start dumping magazines. The difference with explosives like a crossbow or impact grenade are going to come out due to the shockwaves they produce. You will knock yourself over or straight up die if you hit the first one in the lineup. Instead, have the explosion either hit or splash the legs of the second one back. Not only does it prevent you from hurting yourself, it also damages the front, middle, and back of the group. We have now moved on to what is likely the most hated enemy of the automaton faction. It's time to talk about these goddamn soulless, good-for-nothing, filth-caked Devastators. You're gonna hear my voice get progressively more annoyed throughout this segment due to the sheer hatred I hold in my heart for these things. There's three kinds of Devastators. The standard, who does no damage, but for some reason has a head the size of a pin that's remarkably annoying to hit. The Rocket Devastator, which will hit your general area once and throw you across the map, or better yet, knock you into the air and then proceed to kill you in the air, all in the same barrage of rockets. Because for some reason, there's no armor for ragdoll mitigation, but there's 47 claiming explosive resistance that once again doesn't matter because you're getting double tapped before you can get up anyways. Then the last, and most certainly the least, the worthless heaping pile of fuck that is the Shield Devastator. As opposed to having an enemy with a shield that perhaps needs to get close or uses a firearm with some fashion of charge-up time, we instead get a giant aluminum middle finger. I'm not kidding when I say I would rather fight 3 Hulks than 3 Shield Devastators. Because at least when I stagger a Hulk, it'll stop shooting and possibly lose some accuracy. When you stagger a Shield Devastator, you might as well have tried to use a plastic target bag as a weapon against them. It does absolutely nothing. Even when suppressing fire, it's like the amount of bullets they hit is managed by a percentage, and it doesn't even matter which ones actually hit you. My only happiness regarding them is derived from me killing amounts of them in the low thousands for this video. I mean, seriously, look at this shit. How does this make sense? So, how do we go about snuffing out these useless, circuit-ridden, malperformed roadside? I'm glad you asked. We are going to shoot them in the face, and we're going to shoot them in the face so many times. Guns first, tactics in a minute. Medium armor piercing will work fine, but light vehicle armor piercing will work better. This is because if you hit anything that penetrates light vehicle armor anywhere around shoulder level, it will take at most 2 more shots to finish the job, and it gives a hint of stagger. The same cannot be said for medium piercing, however, they can both kill with a single shot to the head. The standard Devastators suck at doing significant damage to you. They just take forever to kill, so they're not really a priority. Now, some people like to blow up the pods on the Rocket Devastators, and as much as I encourage that for terms of emasculating those assholes, a better alternative is trying to kill them as opposed to disabling. Get used to hitting them in the head instead of the shoulders, because you're just wasting your ammo and getting better at shooting shoulders, not heads. They also have a signature tell. When they are about to launch rockets, they crouch down and lean forwards, kind of like some people do when they're about to drop a bomb. When that happens, grab cover or dive out of the way. Fighting a Shield Devastator sucks, no matter which way you slice it, but it is a must that you find cover while dealing with them. Eventually, as you move up the difficulties, it gets to the point where they will hit you with 1 bullet, the stagger will take effect, and then they magically magnetize all their bullets straight to their head, while it's impossible for you to hit a stim. So stay behind a rock and peek out quickly to take your shots, then drop back. Once again, people like to rip off the arms, but it simply makes more sense to go for the head. Another reminder, rounds that penetrate light vehicle armor are going to be very good from here on up. They tend to be in weapons that are still pretty mobile and versatile while being able to take out several different enemy types. We are now into the enemies that will cause your bullets to bounce off if they don't pack enough of a punch. There's one extenuating circumstance here where you would use less impactful weaponry or grenades. That is if the enemy has heating coils. Damage them by any means necessary to get the kill. So remember, our bottom line here for the weakest option to efficiently kill is going to be a weapon that can handle light vehicle armor. Hulks are probably the most over-exaggerated threat on the entire battlefield. If you know how to deal with Marauders and Devastators, you can handle Hulks. They come in two flavors, one being the Scorcher and the other being the Bruiser. You'll be fine against the Scorcher if you maintain distance. Hopefully fire damage sucks less in the future because his flamethrower is basically an instant death. You treat the Bruiser Hulk in the same exact way you would a Rocket Devastator. Wait for it to fire the rocket barrage, then peek out and shoot. Weak points are centralized on the heat coils on their back or the glowing red eye on their faceplate. Anything that can break through light vehicle armor, an AMR or autocannon for example, will only take 2 shots in that faceplate to kill them. If it can break through vehicle armor, that would be your weapons like EAT launchers or quasars, a single shot to the faceplate or 2 standard shots to center mass will put one down. They can also tear off the arms as well as cripple the legs, but they are not considered one of those center mass hits. I will say, if you could aim well, and Hulks are a chief priority on your kill list, overcharged railguns one-shot them. Hulks are super easy. They are giant, slow enemies that walk up to you in a straight line. The only real danger they pose is traveling with a group, because the group lays down more annoying fire than the Hulks do. Moving on to tanks, there are also 2 flavors, being the Shredder and Annihilator. Tanks don't really kill you all that much once you start learning they're super slow at rotating. But the Annihilator is more dangerous because the shockwave its cannon produces can displace you from your cover. You are able to destroy a tank from the front with anti-vehicle armor, but it's so much easier to get an angle on the heating coils in the back and kill them that way. 2 impact grenades can kill an Annihilator tank by hitting the heating coils, and 2 impact grenades can kill a Shredder tank so long as you hit the turret. It does not matter where. Another popular and simple way is handling them with airstrikes. Basically, just run in very close proximity to it, and try to get on either side as opposed to the front or back. It's time to turn our eye to the sky at one of the most genuinely dangerous enemies to let roam around. Gunships are wildly dangerous because they can always get an angle and spike you with rocket barrages. They are also incredibly dangerous because there's no real limit to how many will spawn. They will continuously throw them at you until you break the factory, and the numbers get overwhelming very quickly. Anything capable of penetrating medium armor can take down a gunship so long as you hit the thrusters. Despite this working, I would advise against it and encourage you to opt for light vehicle armor penetration to hit the turbines, or standard vehicle armor penetration to take it down as a whole. Medium penetration simply does not do a good enough job at removing them from the sky quickly. While we're on the topic of sky things, one shot from a standard vehicle penetrating round in the thruster of a dropship will take it down. Finishing up, we have factory striders. I'll tell you what, Clifford the Big Red Dipshit was one tough cookie to crumble, but I figured it out for you eventually. These things are giant, they are distracting, they are durable, but they aren't that good at making you die so long as you get close to them. The critical spot on this thing seems to be the underbelly, but how do we approach that? To do it, we have to talk about the points of danger on this thing. The first being the cannon on its back, the second being the miniguns in its face, and the third being its ability to give itself a C-section and dump a bunch of Devastators on the floor. The cannon goes first because it can forcibly relocate you, instantly kill you, and it maintains a 360-degree view of the landscape. There is no heat vent, so the best way to do this is going to be some fashion of vehicle-penetrating round. Once again, your quasars, recoilless rifles, EATs, etc. Then we move on to the miniguns. Think of this as breaking the teeth off of a walrus or saber-toothed tiger. Some weapons with high-medium armor penetration, like the Dominator, can pull this off. I personally prefer something a little heavier, like an AMR, but they will both get the job done. Once it is disarmed, you can get as close as you want with it posing little to no danger to you apart from the standard Devastators spawning. To be honest, after you take its guns away, it doesn't really do that much. You can clear the area and come back to it at your leisure. The underbelly armor seems to be the minigun armor with a higher health pool. However, despite the Dominator being a good option, I much prefer gutting them with rockets of some description in the name of expediency. Worst case scenario, you can drop a pile of 500s, orbital lasers, rocket pods, rail strikes, but honestly, they all kinda suck, and you're better off doing it with your guns unless you have a mini-nuke on hand. I would very much appreciate a handbook for these things in the future, but for now, that right there should be a wrap for us, ladies and gentlemen. If there's any weird tricks you use, feel free to discuss them in the comments. Maybe someone will learn something from them. If you feel like there's something I missed, feel free to add that as well. I'm not sure I'll do this with bugs because of how simplistic they are to kill, but we'll see. In any case, thank you for your time. I appreciate it as always. It means the world to me. You take care of yourselves and have a good night.